Do it. This is Unlocking the Power of Your Content, 5 must-haves for unbeatable usability. I'm joined today by my good friend and the CEO and co-founder of Agility, John Voigt. It's great to be here today, John.
Thanks for the invite, Joel. And I'm here with Joel, our CTO at Agility here. So we've been doing content architecture for, I want to say 15 plus years, probably since we met. It's been a passion of ours, both on the usability side and on the technical architecture side. So it was pretty easy for us to kind of whip these things out, but some of them are little tips and tricks and things that are really good things to be aware of. So let's jump right in.
Let's do it. Right off the bat, we want to talk about choosing field types. I think this is probably one of the most important things to look at and to understand what the options are. And I've tried to break this down into 4 kind of subtypes, like you were talking about earlier. Lots of ways to break these down. The first thing is to simplify. We want to choose the simplest kind of fields possible. So instead of having like a big HTML blob that you give to your editors, we want to look at maybe using a text field for a title, a description, an image field for an attachment. That makes it clear what you might expect to have in each field. And then we want to look at, and that goes for all of your content, but then we want to look at how your content might relate to itself. If you have a category or a segment or tags, you probably want to have some way to link that to another list with a dropdown or maybe a checkbox list, something like that for multiple selects, or even a tag picker. You want your users to sort of know what the content is by making it a little bit intuitive to work with those links as well. And using link content is something you should draw out beforehand so that you can evolve your content model with it as you determine new requirements over time, but also so you can get away from having, you don't want to have a category field that people can just type in higgledy-piggledy, because then you'll just get, 200 different categories in there.
Yeah, one thing, Joel, I can add on the simplicity and the link side there is the balance of how simple you make it and how complex you make it. So some people will add content, a whole bunch of like categories and things within a piece of content. Sometimes they'll make it a link, like related out. And there's a balance between how much you keep in one piece of content and how many links. So if you have one piece of content, you have 20 links going to all these different things. That can be very difficult to manage all those links. You got to jump around. You got to manage those things. But if you have it all within that one piece of content, then it's very difficult to reuse that other content or reuse fields and things like that. So there's a balance there between simplicity, linking, and how many kind of fields you have on your content that you really have to play with and make sure that you're, looking to future-proof and reusability, but also keeping it simple for the user so they're not jumping around too. So this linking can be complex if you have too much of it. That's where I'm saying.
Spoken like a true database designer, someone who's if you have someone in the room doing this architecture with you, who's a database designer, they'll understand a lot about how links, and sometimes it can get overcomplicated, right?
Yeah.
We also want to look at how we're going to be rendering the options for the editor. We can think about what that content is going to look like, how many items it's going to have. So if this list is if this item is only ever going to be in a list with like 10 things, that's one thing. But if it may have 1,000 or 10,000 items in that list, we want to look at how we can make that more user-friendly just in terms of volume. So it's something really important to understand. Consider whether there's a better way to render a particular field, which is the kind of question that's perfect to reach out to us about. So we've done this before. Sometimes it's good to have a conversation with your vendor, so the person or the people who actually built a content platform, they can really help you with this. We've been showing folks how to use like a block editor custom field instead of the HTML field when developers wanted the flexibility of rich text without the hassle of dealing with raw HTML. So there's a lot of options and sort of things to consider that is really important to look at.
And I'll add one thing too. You can drop in the next one, Joel, because I know you're going to talk about customize next. But a lot of times with rendering, people cut corners because their system has certain fields and they don't have other fields that they really, really need. And the problem there is that you actually take away usability by just using a field that, maybe isn't the right one. So a great example is the rich text editor. Super powerful field. And sometimes people just throw that on there because it renders an element that allows them to do whatever they want. But that allows them to do whatever they want, which can really mess up reusability, can really mess up consistency, quality, all those things from the user, and the user has to lay things out. So, doing something where if your rich text area should always have a title and an image, that should be 2 fields maybe, or it should be a custom field that specifically takes special fields and does something with them and validates or whatnot, versus versus one field that you're just using because it's there.
Yeah. And so when we talk about being able to create custom fields like the block editor I just mentioned, well, that's using a technology in Agility, and a lot of other content platforms are adopting this kind of idea where we call them apps. In the old WordPress world, those used to be called plugins. The terminology of apps is of sort of a marketplace is a lot more common now, but allows you to build or reuse custom fields that other folks have built to deliver a really tailored editor experience on a field level basis within the input form itself. A custom field can do anything that you need it to do. It could be, about entering content manually in a different way, like John was saying. It could be about selecting an image from a digital asset manager like Cloudinary or Binder. It could be about selecting a product from an e-commerce system, or a contact us form from a CRM system like HubSpot or Salesforce. And we're doing, personally, just talking about Agility here now, we're doing a ton of development here with our new Apps SDK for Marketplace, which is coming very soon. We also have an existing Apps SDK that tons of people are using. And it's really exciting to see how people are using this, and what the goal of making life easier for your content team. We want to ensure that your content is reusable, it's future-proof, and it's ready for multi-channel usage. So a really highly templated input form is going to be much more reusable in my experience.
100%. And I guess one thing we kind of should have started from a little bit before jumping into these, 5 things to keep in mind for usability is that obviously we're coming from the context of the Agility platform. So, thinking about, custom fields and all these different things that we may be saying are available in our system. A lot of systems have this functionality, some might not. So we'll try to highlight areas that are, a bit more specific to Agility. One of the big things I see all the time is people don't use custom fields when they should. So they will hack something, or they won't do proper validation. We'll talk about that in a couple slides down below, and they'll just add the fields and hope the editor or hope the user that's managing that content will do it properly. And sometimes you have to put boundaries around what they can do, or validation, as we'll chat about in a couple slides, to make sure that it's easy to do it, but also not easy to not mess up.
Yeah.
Right. So you gotta guide them and be like, don't let them do things that they shouldn't be doing. So for example, the linked content that we talked about, if you're linking to some content or some other content, but that content hasn't been added yet, but you're allowed to publish this content, there's an issue there. You could be able to publish content that doesn't have that linked content or have that relationship. And in those cases, maybe you should be using a custom field or these type of elements that control what the user is doing a little better.
Yep. Another example would be if I want to link off to my e-commerce system, and I'm relying on the editor to copy and paste a product ID or a SKU into a text field. That's a really tough sort of thing to ask an editor to do repeatedly. So to give them a custom field that has a nice picker is a much better experience for the editor. So the editor experience is something we're trying to optimize by choosing the right field types.